goddamn son of a bitch motherfucking video! 6 a.m. Devil's hour! I was up at 4 a.m. squatting and pushing. What were you doing? Sleeping like a poser. A poser doesn't listen to nut slaughter. Where's my protein? Where is that goddamn protein? What is this? What is this? Orgain simple! 20 grams of protein. I need 60 or more! Alcat, what the fuck? Joe's Metal Mancave vlog. Today I have another full black metal collection update for you, just in case last week's death, grind, and doom and progressive metal collection update just didn't do it for you. We're back again, black metal, tapes, CDs, let's get into it, shall we? Troll, in case you do not know them, was an early Norwegian black metal band that was formed in 1992 by the then only 14-year-old Nagash, who by 1995 released his debut demo, which is, as I already said, was called Trollstorm over Niddenjuv. Originally as a self-released demo, it was then shortly thereafter picked up by Head Not Found Records and released as a CD EP. And then, I think in 2001, it got re-released by Head Not Found once again, but then for years it was out of print, and just recently Dread Records re-released it on cassette tape. And there's the two first recordings from Troll are interesting because they show two very different sides of the project right from the get-go. So this shows a much more raw black metal. There's some synthesizers used, but it's definitely much more just kind of straightforward raw black metal. The guitar tone is amazingly comparable to like the guitar tone that Saturn Khan used on Dark Medieval Times, or even kind of like the Dark Throne, you know, sound of like Under a Funeral Moon and a Blazing Northern Sky. Very just classic and typically Norwegian for its time, but it absolutely fucking rules. I mean, there's some synthesizers used like in the intro and here and there, but it's definitely more just this raw black metal style, and it is just awesome. All four songs are just classic Norwegian black metal. If you've never heard this, dude, you have to hear this. This is awesome stuff. But then when we get to Deputy Krishna, it's a much more symphonic based, Norwegian black metal style, very comparable to Emperor and I guess Demo Borgir, although when this was released in 1996, Demo only had, I think, For All Tid was out. I don't think even Stormblast was out yet, so not necessarily a direct influence, but I'm sure Emperor and, Demo Borgir, all that early stuff was very influential for the young Nagash, who of course in 1997 then would join Demo Borgir as their bassist. But this stuff is a little more dungeon synth, more symphonic black metal, and if you've heard the Finnish black metal band known as Vargrav, well, this is what he was inspired by. This tape right here was unquestionably, like, he was like, okay, I'm gonna make something just like this, and it sounds just like this. I love this album, and I love Vargrav, so it's kind of hard to say which one I love more, but I mean, you gotta kind of give this more props because it was released 20 years before the Vargrav album or whatever. So, but the weird thing about getting these in my collection just now after all these years is that Nagash's other project, Covenant, was huge for me. Well, it was basically the first black metal band I ever heard. Nexus Polaris, released back in 1998, man. I mean, just classic album. I mean, it was more melodic and kind of gothy sounding black metal, but nevertheless, it got my foot in the door of the black metal world, and then I've continued to go down the rabbit hole ever since. And of course, their debut album, In Times Before the Light, is a much more raw, but still, symphonic black metal. Absolute gem. I mean, if you've never heard Covenant, man, you gotta, I mean, these are treasures. I've had these for over 20 years. This is some of my all-time favorite stuff, really. So, anyway, let's take a look at the layout of these tapes, Well, the Deputy Krishna one is playing in the whole tape deck right now. So there we got a picture of Nagash. And then another, some lyrics and various tidbits, and yeah, man, cool. So that's, I shouldn't have dropped it. Well, anyway, The Japanese Krishna cassette is gold and this one is silver. And then here's the layout for the demo. Kind of an interesting observation I had to make after I got this was that there's these two other guys, I guess they're in the band named Glaurung and Fafner. And when I looked at Metal Archives and this cassette too, it doesn't really give much information as to what they did in the band, because I always just thought the early Troll stuff was all just nagash. Well, I dug around on Metal Archives a little bit and I found out that at least Fafner wrote the lyrics for the album, but what Glaurung did, I don't know. Maybe you guys know, I'd be very curious, but nevertheless, it was interesting to see the pictures of these two other individuals here, and yeah, man, if you have not heard Troll, change it immediately. As I said, you can get these from Dread Records, and if you're in Europe, for example, they don't ship there because of the just ridiculous shipping costs and the custom forms and all that kind of stuff. So if you are from a European country and you want to get these, I believe they're available from Darkness Shall Rise Productions, so definitely check there, or it might even be in some other distros too. Just poke your nose around, you'll probably find them, so just don't get butthurt, like if you go look at the Dread Records website and go, oh man, they don't ship to Europe. So it's out there, just fucking look around. Alright, we're continuing on with an album that I've wanted to get in my collection for many years now, but getting an original press was pricey, to say the least. I seen this album going on there for like anywhere from like 50 to $100, and every time I see something like that, I'm just like, well, I'm never owning that goddamn album. But then, about 2 or 3 months ago, I was making an order from Darker Than Black. Oh, the horror! I was making an order from Darker Than Black Records, and well, I found this album, and I was like, holy shit, it got re-released. So, the album in question then is Parnassus, and their debut album, In Delirium Gloria. And as you can see in the cover, classical painting of Jesus about to get his nails did. Yeah, girl. So, God, what the hell's wrong with me? So Parnassus then was the project of Frederick Soderlund, who you may or may not also know from the neoclassical martial industrial band Puissance, or the black metal band Octonomos. He also later on had a, I guess, death metal band called Murder Plan. But he's mostly noted for his 90s output of music, and Parnassus was another one of the projects he put out back then. He did 2 albums, this being the first one. Basically what we have here is raw symphonic black metal, but definitely done in like the Frederick Soderlund style. It has the fast, very fast programmed drums, very kind of neoclassical-ish keyboards, and then just very discordant, distorted, dirty guitars that really you can't really even make out any of the riffs, and then just, harshly screamed vocals. So kind of the main highlight here is just the keyboards, which, have a very cool neoclassical vibe to them, and if you've heard his band Puissance, you'll kind of make the connections really, because it basically sounds like that band, just with black metal elements added to it. But, I didn't know that before buying this record. I just was like, well, I like Octonomos and I like Puissance, and I always wanted to hear this, and I could have looked on, YouTube and listened to it and been like, oh, this is what it sounds like, but this was a total surprise for me. I didn't know what the hell I was getting. But I generally dig this, but there's times with like the keyboards, because the keyboards never stop at any point in this album. This is 100% symphonic black metal from the start to the end. It could be a little overbearing at times, I gotta admit, because symphonic black metal, as much as I love those symphonic keyboards, or even if they're real symphonic elements in music, like, I want it still to be the metal element, something I kind of bang my head to, or just, a good chunky riff or something, then you do not get that in this album at all. Like, if you really stop and pay attention, like, yeah, you can kind of make out the riffs, but they all sound pretty generic, if I gotta be honest with you. I don't know. So anyway, there's the front cover, and this is a new digipack version, if I didn't already mention. I think I did. The original was a jewel case, released on a label that I can't remember, but I know it's not going any longer. This re-release, however, here is released by The Oath, which is, I guess, a relatively new label that, like many other labels out there these days, is re-releasing old black metal classics, and I say fuck yeah to that, man. So it's great that I was able to get this in my collection for like €8 as opposed to like the $70 to $80 I would have had to pay for the original. So Anyway, certainly not the greatest symphonic black metal album I've ever heard, but, you know, definitely interesting and different. That has to be said. I mean, again, it's either Puissance with black metal elements, or it's Octanomos with symphonic black metal elements. I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's what you kind of expect from Frederick Solden. Simple as that. Alright guys, continuing on, and I'm super stoked to have this back in my collection, because back in the early 2000s, I had a CD reissue of it, but, well actually the very first CD reissue of this, and I don't know why, but I sold it. And the demo in question here is Thyrane and their Black Harmony demo, which was originally released in 1997. So then in 1998 it was picked up by Woodcut Records and released as a CD EP, although it is 35 minutes of music, so it is pretty much a full-length album, even though the band doesn't see it as such. So yeah, I had OG pressing of it originally, and then in 2001 this demo got re-released again because it was so popular. It got re-released with a sort of a symphonic-ish progressive black metal band known as the Dead Beginners, who I actually had mentioned a few collection updates ago was originally known as the Autumn Verses. So then I basically had two versions of this album at some point in time, and then I ended up selling both of them, and I don't know why, because I always loved the shit out of this. But Thyrane, when they first started out, this Finnish black metal band was performing symphonic black metal in a very comparable style to Dimmu Borgir. I mean, there's no doubt that Enthroned Darkness Triumphant had a tremendous effect on the scene, you know, not just in Norway, but just worldwide, you know. There was a lot of bands that in the late 90s tried to basically copy that Dimmu Borgir sound, and a lot of it is not too good. I mean, I'll say this, and I'll always, you know, I love Enthroned Darkness Triumphant. I think it's a phenomenal album, but it's unfortunately the last good Dimmu Borgir album. And, but a lot of stuff that got influenced by it was just a byproduct of it. It was generic, it just didn't have the same atmosphere, the same guitar licks, and just, you know, it was boring. This is a rare exception of that style being copied, and it is very, very good. What makes it so good is it has more of a raw production, which is kind of what I wish Enthroned Darkness had all these years later. But it has just really, really good, just killer riffs, just really good energy to it. It's probably a lot more energetic than Dimmu Borgir ever was, and there's sort of maybe underlying thrashiness to some of the guitars too, but it rules, man. It is very, very good. So anyway, what I have here is 2020 re-release by Woodcut Records. So I'm glad they brought this back in their breaks. It's just awesome stuff. They also had a t-shirt available on their Bandcamp, which I should have bought. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but yeah, man, just awesome stuff. So there's the front cover. I'm going to take the book out, actually. And there's the back cover. Really, there's a picture of the band and the tray card. That's right, and let's check out the booklet. So there's you got this upside down cross and some heavy metal horns going there. There's the back of the booklet. Inside the booklet, of course, we got pictures of all the band members. And these guys are kind of interesting. Their first album, too, was very much in that classic Dimmu Borgir style. But by the time they got to their second album, they started to... the album had a much more, I guess, kind of clean sounding. It seemed, at least in my opinion, more thrashy sounding. The keyboards were just hokey as shit sounding. Yeah, the Spirit of Rebellion album I didn't like. And then like 2 years after that, they released Hypnotic, and then they went for that like industrial, like just, I don't know, man, that stupid shitty industrial style of black metal is so popular because of Thorns, and even though Thorns rules, every band that tried to do it after them just couldn't do it, and Hypnotic was awful. I mean, I couldn't believe how bad it was when I got it in my CD player, so I sold that really quickly. And then after that album, they broke up, and then it wasn't until I think a few years ago they reformed and made a new album, which I guess is now, you know, in like the style of their demo. So I gotta check it out eventually. But a cool band. I would only say check out Black Harmony and Symphony's of Infernality if you want to hear what this band really has to offer, because this first two recordings are just fucking awesome. Alright guys, one more for this symphonic black metal collection update, and this is another album that I'm getting back in my collection. I owned this album back in, oh gosh, probably like 2001. I just randomly bought it off eBay because the guy's selling it. It saw the coolest description he gave, and I was like, fucking hey, why not? And at some point in time, I guess, quite a few years ago, it must have been like 15 years ago, I sold the album. And the reason why I sold it was trivial, but yeah, it was kind of justified too, and I'm going to explain that in a second. So, the album in question here is Sacrilegium and their debut album, Wicker. So, Sacrilegium is a Polish black metal band, and probably the best way to compare this stuff is it's pretty closely sounding to early Behemoth. I mean, the snarly, raspy vocal sounds amazingly comparable, like Nergal's early vocals. And then the sound of early Behemoth is in this project for sure. And then, stuff like Graveland and Velis was certainly an influence here. I mean, the Polish black metal scene had a lot of really great projects, but they all kind of sound pretty similar, especially in those first 5 years or so there. And that's definitely the sound of this. It's highly symphonic black metal, but a bit raw and like Graveland and Behemoth style. What I have here is a more recent 2014 reissue remaster. And it's very important to mention this remaster right from the get-go, because I remember very distinctly from the original, what I hated about it is the drums were very clicky and very sort of like the sound of like a fucking hammer pounding on the goddamn wall repetitively. It was like fucking Homer Simpson's auto hammer and that Thomas Edison. That's what it sounded like. It was so annoying. So I sold the goddamn album like 3 years after owning it or something because I couldn't stand it. And then, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or something, I came across on YouTube and then I was like, oh yeah, that album, let's listen to it. And I'm just like, God damn it, it actually really sounds good. Why'd I sell it? But yeah, I got this 2014 reissue remaster, and I'm happy to report the drums, they still sound the same, but they're not as overbearing. Like, that was the other problem with them. Like, the drums, this clicky drums, was like in the forefront of everything. It was very annoying. Everything here sounds much more well balanced, and the drums, even though they maintain that sound, they're pushed back a little bit, and everything's more balanced and sounds as it should. That sounds really, really good. Yeah, there was just issues with the production on that first album, or the original album. But it definitely sounds improved here, so that's awesome. But just superb, just raw symphonic black metal here. This is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I regret it, but actually this is, the superior version to have anyway, really, because not only did you get it remastered, you also get a bonus track from a split album that would come a couple years after this. And another kind of interesting thing to note about Sacrilegium is that sometime in the mid-90s, I guess they legitimately were having a discussion with the Dark Throne guys about doing a small tour together, and I don't think like the Dark Throne, especially knowing how Fenris hates live shows, it probably wasn't being taken very seriously, but apparently there was some sort of plan to actually do a small tour, but then the guitarist from Sacrilegium broke his leg in a motorbike accident, and that put the kibosh on that, so it didn't happen, but definitely would have been interesting had Dark Throne toured Eastern Europe or something like that. But yeah, definitely a classic, just great stuff. If you like that early Polish black metal sound, and damn do I ever love it, this is a must-own. This is a fantastic album. Sacrilegium, Wicker. Alright guys, as usual, thank you so much for stopping in at Joe's Metal Mancave. That's some symphonic black metal picks for you, some recent stuff I've gotten in the past few months, and stuff I really enjoy. So if you've heard these, as always, I'd be curious about your thoughts. Let me know. The comments are on, just so you guys know. And the point of these videos is to communicate with you, the black metal people, or the metal people in general. I'm doing this too because I want to talk to you guys. I want to nerd out with you. So the comments are on. Do feel free to post any thought that comes into your head, be it good or bad, or if you just want to make fun of me, hey, I'll do that too. I don't really care. So yeah, that's Joe's Metal Mancave, and I'll see you next time.